Yo, the fifth largest company in the world with a whopping market cap of $2.3 trillion is now being forced to investigate Bitcoin to potentially put it on its balance sheet. Of course, this is coming a couple weeks after Microsoft was put in a very similar position. Why is all of this happening? Of course, it's happening because of Microstrategy. Microstrategy is performing all of the S&P 500. So this is the game theory. This is incentives playing out in real time. But I also don't think we should be surprised on who this company is. And of course, I'm talking about Amazon. Yeah, that's right, Amazon. News broke that Amazon is investigating whether they should or should not put Bitcoin on their balance sheet. But it's not surprising because there was news that came out recently that Jeff Bezos' wife celebrated her birthday on Michael Saylor's yacht. You got that right, right? Anyways, has the CEO of Amazon, the second richest man in the world, has he been quietly planning this for a while? Because after all, he's been selling a ton of stock. We know he's been hanging out with Saylor. We have the Microsoft news coming out a couple weeks ago. We have the Microsoft vote coming up tomorrow. I mean, all the dominoes seem like they're coming into place. They're falling into place. This is extremely exciting, at least from a price perspective. Anyways, I'm joined on today's show by my legendary co-host, the always optimistic Optimus Fields. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's jump straight into the news. No more delay. So what am I talking about? Check out this Yahoo Finance article. Originally dropped by CoinDesk, Amazon shareholders push for minimum 5% Bitcoin allocation. Now, what's really interesting about this, everybody, is we had a very similar story with Microsoft. It wasn't the C-suite. It wasn't the executive team that was pushing for this. It was the shareholders. This is something that we predicted this was inevitably going to happen. Why is that? Because Amazon is an amazing company. Microsoft, you can make a case that it's an amazing company as well, and they make a lot of money in terms of revenue. But imagine if you're a Microsoft or Amazon shareholder and you're taking a look at MicroStrategy. I'm not saying MicroStrategy is a bad company, but obviously in terms of revenue, Amazon is making a lot more money. Microsoft is making a lot more money. You're looking at what is MicroStrategy doing that we are not doing? And the only difference is that MicroStrategy is accumulating large amounts of Bitcoin. So let's get to the article. Amazon shareholders are urging the company to take a page from MicroStrategy's playbook by diversifying its reserves into Bitcoin to beat inflation and boost shareholder value. Quote, though Bitcoin is currently a volatile asset, as Amazon stock has been at times throughout its history, corporations have a responsibility. Oh my God, Opti, we nailed this. Corporations have a responsibility to maximize shareholder value over the long term as well as the short term. Diversifying the balance sheet by including some Bitcoin solves this problem without taking on too much volatility. It goes on to say, at minimum, Amazon should evaluate the benefits of holding some, even just 5% of its assets in Bitcoin. Bitcoin, the leading cryptocurrency by market cap, has surged 134% this year, topping the $100,000 mark in a move that has outshined every major asset, including gold and the S&P 500. That said, shares in Bitcoin holder MicroStrategy has seen even more significant gains, more than 500% versus Amazon's 49% rise. The shareholders' proposal highlighted MSTR's outperformance along with BTC adoption by companies like Tesla and Block, while emphasizing that the online retailer has a fiduciary duty to look beyond short-term volatility in assets like BTC, which appreciate more than bonds, and add those to its treasury. It goes on to say, at the end of the third quarter, Amazon had $585 billion in total assets, of which $88 billion represented in cash, cash equivalents, and marketable securities, including treasury notes, foreign government, and corporate bonds. the asset mix isn't accurately protecting the shareholder value, the proposal said. And you know what, Opti, I'm calling it. This is exactly what Simply Bitcoin has been predicting. We said this was inevitable. Listen, you can take an ideological stance against Bitcoin. You could do it. However, eventually, because you are beholden to your shareholders as a publicly traded company, eventually some of those shareholders are going to say, hey, why are you not following in the footsteps of MicroStrategy? What's going on here? This makes absolutely no sense. Something that we've been predicting for a couple weeks now. I think it's something that Saylor is betting on as well. So let's take a look at how much cash on hand Amazon is holding. So they're holding currently $88 billion. Now, here's the thing, guys. This is the crazy part. If you are to take what the U.S. government's current inflation numbers are predicting, you would say, whoa, seems like the YouTube stream is messed up.
No, I think the back end, it's live, Nico. Just keep going. Okay. Everyone, yeah, I'm trying to get them over to the right link.
Just migrate to the right link. Sorry about that, everybody. But anyways, okay. So what is 88 billion? So it's $88 billion. What's 2 points? You have to multiply that by 2.6%. That's the inflation rate. So that's a loss of $2.28 billion in purchasing power on a yearly basis if they're just holding in cash. Even if they put a percentage, not the entirety of the 88 billion, just a percentage of that 88 billion into Bitcoin, not only will it make up for that $2.28 billion loss in purchasing power, they could actually have a gain just by holding, this excess capital. They're just not picking the right asset. So this is nuts. $2.28 billion. Now, the reason that companies like Amazon or Microsoft don't care about that is because they're so profitable. But $2.28 billion is still $2.28 billion. Before MicroStrategy adopted the Bitcoin strategy, the Bitcoin playbook, their market cap was roughly 1.3 billion. Just to kind of give you an idea of how much purchasing power is being lost by Amazon just by holding cash. And what's really exciting, like I was saying in the beginning of the show as well, is Microsoft shareholders to decide on Bitcoin investment this week. So we're actually going to hear that news coming out of Microsoft. I believe the vote is going to be held on the 10th of December. So tomorrow, I mean, if Bitcoin keeps doing what Bitcoin is doing, like, again, the article phrased it the way that we've been phrasing it over the last couple of weeks. This is not, you cannot take an ideological stance against this. If you are the executive team of a public company, your responsibility is for the stock to go up. That's like literally what you're supposed to do. It has to perform. So even if you have a negative outlook on Bitcoin, eventually you're going to have a shareholder revolt saying, you know what, like, why don't you copy that MicroStrategy strategy? Tesla is holding, I think, 10,000 Bitcoin or so. What are we doing, guys? What's going on here? We got to wake the F up, right? So yeah, anyways, Opti, what's your take on this?
Sorry, guys, just choked on saliva. Yeah, I mean, look, I think the big signal here is what you kind of glossed over in the beginning. A couple of months ago, or I think it might have been about a month ago, we were all kind of speculating whether Amazon was going to be next. We all kind of heard that news of Jeff Bezos selling a lot of Amazon stock. And obviously he's having these conversations with Saylor. And I think everyone is starting, at least the high net worth individuals are starting to get the message, which is if you are trying to save in cash or cash equivalents, you are holding melting ice cubes. And now that the MicroStrategy strategy has so clearly outperformed everyone else, everyone is being forced to bend the knee to Bitcoin. And so am I surprised that Amazon or Amazon shareholders are kind of looking towards what Saylor's doing, kind of asking the same questions that Microsoft is asking? No, not at all. I think this is an inevitability. Obviously, I would say, pump those numbers up from 5% to a lot more than that, but this is definitely going to continue to happen. This is the trend that I think we're going to see continue to happen in 2025 is more huge companies. Obviously, the biggest companies in the world are now looking at Bitcoin as a legitimate thing to add to their portfolio. And obviously, this is going to increase number go up, which also is going to bring some, some trade-offs to this. And there is a lot of, FUD kind of coming around right now with the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve and even adding Bitcoin to the portfolios. And I'm going to cover that in the culture, and we'll kind of chat about that. But am I surprised? Not at all. Like, Jeff Bezos, he has arguably one of the best companies in the world. Like, I'm sure everyone uses Amazon. You can hate or love Amazon, but they have an incredible product. I don't like to go shopping. I order everything off Amazon as well. There's a trade-off there. Like, love mom and pop shops, but Amazon is the GOAT right now. And so am I surprised that they're going to add Bitcoin, or at least being forced to add Bitcoin? No, we knew that this was going to happen. I think another big watershed moment would be whether you can actually start to pay with Bitcoin on Amazon. Like, I think that would be a huge, a very huge news coming out. But that'd I think, massive. Baby steps first and foremost is showing people. It's kind of what we covered last week. A lot of people are kind of latching on to this idea that Bitcoin is just a store of value. And obviously, this is where we are in the story right now, that, hey, it is a store of value. As we've been covering all year long, it's becoming very clear that Bitcoin is the best performing asset in the last 15 years. And if you want to maintain, or rather increase your purchasing power, you need to have some Bitcoin. And then moving forward, the Microsoft presentation that Saylor did, if you do look at those numbers, if you screenshot, or rather pause a lot of those screenshots on Saylor's presentation, 3-minute presentation. Remember, we were trolling. There's like 50 slides in like 3 minutes, and it's just like rapid fire slides. But if you look at those slides and you look at the numbers, it really is kind of a no-brainer. And I forget the numbers that Saylor was saying in particular, but he was basically saying, like, hey, if Microsoft wants to add $1 trillion to their market cap, they have to adopt Bitcoin. And I think, Bezos is kind of looking at the same thing. I think Bezos is an innovator. He is a leader in the digital world. And I think it would be a dumb move if they don't add Bitcoin. Now, Nico and I were kind of arguing about that. Not arguing. We were kind of debating this in the morning. Nico was saying, what you say? If the CEOs don't want to get fired, then they have to add Bitcoin to their portfolio. And I was kind of pushing back a little bit. I'm like, I don't think we're necessarily there yet. I don't think Bitcoin has the mind share right now where it's like every CEO has to put it on their balance sheet, or else it's obviously like a bad move. But we are entering into that era where, hey, if you want to maintain your lead, you want to be competitive. And remember, we played the clip Friday in regards to the Charles Schwab network playing that clip where it's saying, if you want to be competitive, you need to add Bitcoin to your balance sheet. And I think this is where we're going. Like, I think this is the next iteration of Bitcoin maturing. And man, like, we're here for it. Obviously, it's a no-brainer for us Bitcoiners. We're so close to the numbers. This is all we kind of think about. It's obviously a no-brainer, but there still is a lot of skepticism coming out from Main Street and Wall Street and, from all the normies, for lack of better words. And it still seems kind of risky. On the flip side, we argue the opposite. It's risky not to own Bitcoin at this point. And I think that signal is catching on. So we'll see what happens tomorrow with the Microsoft vote. I don't know if there's poly-market odds on this, Nico, but I don't think they're that high that they're going to add Bitcoin to their balance sheet, which kind of, would be on trend for Microsoft. I kind of argue that they're a dinosaur computer company, though I know all business companies use Microsoft. But hey, we'll see what happens.
Business is business, dude. Like, this is what I've been trying to get at these last couple of weeks. And I'm so glad that Yahoo article kind of framed it the right way. Like, listen, you can be a dinosaur company and whatever. At the end of the day, capitalism is capitalism. Like, shareholder value is shareholder value. Like, you can't get around that. Like, if your competitor is doing something and it's working for them, And because it's working for them, the price, their share, the price of their shares are rising. You are now at a competitive disadvantage against them. And if you lay out the numbers, it's unexcusable, right? So $2.28 billion loss of purchasing power on a yearly basis. This isn't even mentioning how much cash Apple has, how much cash Berkshire Hathaway has, how much cash Google has. And it's just sitting there. And now I understand the analogy that Michael Saylor was using when he was saying, like, listen, this is like sitting on melting ice cubes. He is 100% right when he says that. And if these companies don't get with the program, they're essentially leaving money on the table for their shareholders. This is why I believe, like, look, if you're the CEO of a private company, you have a lot more, you can resist that a lot more. However, if you're the CEO of a public company, you're beholden. You have a fiduciary duty to do good by your shareholders. And if your shareholders, especially if that percentage of those shareholders starts to grow and says, hey, you know what? You guys are messing up by not looking at this Bitcoin thing. They're not going to have a choice regardless of how the CEO personally feels about Bitcoin or not. Right. So I think this is really what we're going to start to see over the next 4 years minimum, is not only a continuation of the trend of the institutional adoption of Bitcoin, also on the nation state level. There's news coming out of Bitcoin MENA that more nation states are actively mining it, but you're going to start to see adoption on a company level as well. I think especially the tech companies, they're going to jump on this train. Perhaps not because they want to, but because they have to, because of the performance of their competitors. And we already have one, Tesla, which is really a tech company over a car company, to be honest with you. They're holding a bag of 10,000 Bitcoin. I know they sold some of it, but they're still holding the vast majority of it. Anyways, guys, it's going to be a great show. Guys, help us out a little bit today because it seems like the streaming software kind of bugged out in the back end on YouTube. So I had to create another stream. So if you guys are enjoying the stream so far, help us get to 100 likes, because all those likes that were built up before the show went even live, they all just poofed. So just smash that like button if you guys are enjoying the show so far, and stay tuned because we still have a ton of content to cover. Today, we're going to be talking about some updates coming out of the Bitcoin MENA conference that's happening right now in Abu Dhabi. Shout out to our friends at Bitcoin Magazine for organizing that. Also, breaking news as well. It seems like the Bank Secrecy Act, who would have known, Bitcoiners would have known. It seems like it has been discovered that was being used to surveil and censor, debank certain Americans. That's been uncovered as well. And also breaking news, which is really interesting, Michael Saylor, the Chad Saylor, joined Dave Portnoy in his office. I believe it's in Miami. And Michael Saylor was just laying it out to Dave Portnoy, the reason as to why he should have exposure to Bitcoin. And I think Michael Saylor, just lays it out so elegantly in about 2 minutes or so. So guys, we still have a lot of show coming up for you guys, so stay tuned. But before we jump into all of that, I do want to give a very special shout out to Simply Bitcoin's lead sponsor. Simply Bitcoin is funded by our partners. Our partners are who pays the bills. So if you want to support Simply Bitcoin, we get this message all the time. We just ask you, check out our partners. And we're very picky on who we choose to partner with. All the companies are companies that are going to help empower you on your Bitcoin journey. So shout out to our lead partner, Bitcoin Well. Bitcoin Well is the best place to build your automatic self-custody Bitcoin stack. Enable your independence with the fastest and safest way to buy on-chain and Lightning Network Bitcoin in Canada and the USA. To get started, go to bitcoinwell.com today. And what makes Bitcoin Well different than all the other on-ramps is that it's a non-custodial platform. What does that mean? That means that when you buy Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well, as soon as the funds clear, it goes straight to your self-custody Bitcoin wallet address. They don't even allow you to leave the funds on the exchange. It's Bitcoin done the right way. Also, check out their Bitcoin Well Infinite product that just launched. It's tailored for high net worth individuals that want a white glove service when they're buying Bitcoin. So if you're interested in buying $50,000 worth of Bitcoin or more, and you're tired of dealing with that annoying Coinbase UI and their terrible support, and you actually want to deal with a human being when you buy, sell, or you have any questions about Bitcoin, check out Bitcoin Well Infinite. To get started, go to bitcoinwell.com/OTC, or you can email me at nico@bitcoinwell.com. Also, every time you buy Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well, you earn Bitcoin Well points, and you could redeem those points towards the Bitcoin Wishing Well contest. All right, everybody, we have lots of stuff to get to. Let's start the show. Here we go. I want to tell you guys about our sponsor, Stampseed. Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Are your seed words really secure? Stampseed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you'll need to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of writing them down on paper. Don't do that. Paper sucks. You want to literally stamp your seed into this plate of titanium. Your words are actually stamped into the metal plate with this hammer. So once your words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and your pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamp seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They are also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and most importantly, because this is generational wealth, time-proof. All things that paper is not, allowing you to hodl your Bitcoin for the long haul. I mean, here is the plate that they crushed. They put in water, they put a blowtorch to it, and as you can see, the words have survived. Stamp your seed on Stampseed. And you can use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on their store. Head over to Stampseed. All right, everybody, you do want to take self-custody of your Bitcoin the right way. Don't write down your seed words. Stamp them onto titanium. Promo code SIMPLY. Head over to stampseed.com today. Also, guys, smash the like button. Help us catch up. I don't know what happened on YouTube's end, but it seems like, I don't think it was on YouTube's end, but it seems like our streaming software kind of messed up a little bit. So we had to start a whole other stream on YouTube. So forgive us for that. Smash the like button so we can catch up to where we normally are at this point in the show. At the time of recording, the Bitcoin price is at $97,550. Pause the show right now. Pause it. Stop what you're doing and take advantage of stacking some sats under $100,000. You're not going to be able to say that for very long. Block height, 873,982 sats per dollar. We're above 1,000 again. Sats per dollar, 1,025. I think I cursed this because I tweeted out like Sunday night. I said, I cannot believe we're able to get that $1 gets you less than 1,000 sats. Market cap, 1.93 trillion. Bitcoin price in gold, 36.7 ounces. Bitcoin versus gold market cap, 10.45%. Percentage issued, 94.25. Decline from all-time high, negative 5.9%. Realized monetary inflation, that number continues to go down. It's so crazy. When me and Opti were covering that, it used to be above 2. It's so crazy that even if governments manage to get inflation back to that 2% number, Bitcoin's is still lower, and it's going to continue to go lower the more halvings happen, right? So it's very, very interesting. Anyway, so the big breaking news of today was that Chad Saylor went on Dave Portnoy's show. It's called Davey Day Trader Global. And, he was just kind of orange pilling Dave Portnoy. So it's really, really fascinating, kind of show. I recommend watching it. If it's interesting, not so much because you've heard, if you guys are tuning into Simply Bitcoin, you've heard these arguments so many times. What's really fascinating to me is watching Dave Portnoy go through the journey of the Bitcoiner. And the journey of a Bitcoiner is 99% of people, and I'm telling you, even the most maxis of the maxis, it's always the same. You start off shitcoining a little bit. You're into crypto. Yes, perhaps you have Bitcoin, but you think Bitcoin is boring, and you're into Bitcoin and crypto, and you have this portfolio of all these alts and cryptos and whatever. And look, I'm a libertarian. You guys could do whatever you want. We don't recommend it. But that was Dave Portnoy's experience, and he had a negative experience. And this is why we tell you guys, if you guys want a good experience in the crypto industry, literally just buy Bitcoin, stay humble, stack sats, dollar cost average over a long period of time, do it for a minimum of 1 cycle, which is 4 years. No one's ever lost money doing that. And if you do it for 8 years, I promise you, you're going to send me a message. I get these all the time now because I've been doing this for a while. You're going to send me a message and you're like, this fundamentally has changed my life. I cannot believe it. It's really that simple. So the problem is that a lot of people want to speculate. They want to gamble a little bit. And there's nothing wrong with that if you're willing to lose that money. And they kind of get into the crypto world. But someone like Dave Portnoy doesn't have the necessity to gamble. Why? This guy's worth $100 million. So you don't, like, you know, if you're worth less than 100,000, okay, you know, perhaps you're looking for that, you know, 1,000x or 100x or 20 or 30x, and you want it in a short amount of time. So, you know, there's perhaps you feel like you have a necessity to do that. But if someone's like, you know, like Dave Portnoy, he's worth $100 million. Let's say he just takes 10, 20% of his net worth, puts it into Bitcoin. That's $10 million worth of Bitcoin. That's $20 million of Bitcoin. He's going to be a billionaire in 10, 20 years with that type of allocation, right? So, and even if you're not worth that type of money, man, Bitcoin is a cheat code. Everything gets progressively cheaper over time if you're on a Bitcoin standard. So even if and when, I wouldn't say if, even when Bitcoin, and I've said this and people are so confused, even when Bitcoin gets to 100,000 or $1 million, I'm gonna still be buying it. Why? Because I don't want to hold dollars. Like it's like, because it gets to 100,000, like all of a sudden you're just like, okay, I'm gonna stop. They're like, what? So I'm gonna, like, think about it. Why would you hold dollars? It does not make sense. It does not make sense. And this is exactly what Saylor was trying to explain to Mr. Portnoy. So let's check out the clip.
Michael showed up about 20 minutes ago and I want to wait. Look at the setup we got here. I want what we talked about because we have the video of the Winklevosses telling me Eli Musk is going to outer space and raining gold down. Confused me. I sold it. You just buy 400 something thousand Bitcoins with your company and you. So if I want to know what I got wrong about Bitcoin, or explain it so I understand it finally.
Yeah, I think let's talk about it in sports metaphors. It's like, first of all, there's some games that you can't play, you got to watch. And if you're just watching the game and the team wins, that means your season tickets are going to get more expensive next year. But there are other games you can play. You go into a casino and you play the game, but you know the game's rigged against you. There are some games where the house wins, you're not winning. And Satoshi created a game that's rigged in favor of the individual.
Is he a real person?
Satoshi is a real person.
Do you know who he is?
Gone but not forgotten.
Do you aware? Do you know who that person is?
We're all Satoshi. We're all Satoshi now, Dave.
Okay.
Right? The most important thing to know is that, like Prometheus gave us fire to warm you up, Satoshi gave us a game we can all win, right? And Bitcoin is that game. It's, you know, there are certain things where, like, you don't want to be on a network where they can censor what you say and they can freeze your account. Bitcoin is a monetary network where it won't censor where you send your money. It won't freeze your account. And it's engineered in such a way that on the margin, you're winning the game over time. So think of it like, wouldn't it be great if you had a basketball team, you had LeBron James, you had Michael Jordan, and you had the digital version of them, and they played forever, and you could get on the court and play with them. And they're scoring 100 points and you're scoring 2 points, but you're all getting rich together and you're all winning together. That's what Bitcoin is like. It's like everybody gets to play. Everywhere in the world I go, there's like a fan club. There's hundreds of millions of people that are on Team Bitcoin. You should join Team Bitcoin. The 100 million fans would be rooting for you. And the great thing about it is you don't just win the game, you get.
Beautifully explained. By the way, guys, it means a lot to us. You helped us catch up to where we usually are without the little streaming mishap. So help us break 200 likes within the first 40 minutes of the show. Really appreciate it. We just broke 615 live viewers just on YouTube alone. Appreciate our Rumble audience and, of course, our X audience as well. Guys, smash the like button, share the video if you guys are enjoying Simply Bitcoin Live today on December 9th, 2024. The best is yet to come, ladies and gentlemen. We're heading into 2025. 2025 is looking out to be this insane year in Bitcoin's history. I'm class of 2016. I am getting, in hindsight, I didn't know this, but 2024 is giving me 2016 vibes. And what happened in 2017 was Bitcoin pulled a mother effing 20x from January to December. Now, I'm not saying that's the same thing that's going to happen. I'm a vibes person, though. I'm a vibes person, and I'm feeling the vibes, the institutions, the nation states, the companies, the people getting involved, the fact that it's becoming mainstream. You have popular figures that are dropping Bitcoin by name. You have the president of the United States, the most powerful country on the face of the planet, wishing Bitcoin happy birthday, congratulating Bitcoiners on 100K. How could you? And he's not even inaugurated yet. Like, things are gonna get. You had the so-called crypto czar appointed, which is I believe his name is Nick Sachs, right, or David Sachs. This guy's like a mega, Bitcoin bull. To be fair, crypto bull, but it's still the same. We're gonna benefit equally. It is gonna be wild. Right? Bitcoin performed despite getting attacked on a regulatory level the last 4 years or so. So I am so bullish about next year. It's going to be insane. And, you're seeing kind of this breakthrough. You're seeing Saylor get invited to mainstream non-Bitcoin related shows, whether it's Charles Payne on Fox Business, whether it's Valuetainment, PBD's, media company podcast, whether it's Lex Friedman. It's the Bitcoin hope optimism mind virus is spreading to the world. And one of the things that I love that Michael Saylor said in that clip with Dave Portnoy is, in Bitcoin, everyone wins. And that is such a foreign concept to most people because they're used to operating in the fiat world, which is a zero-sum game. It's like there's few winners, and the vast majority of people are losers in the fiat system. In the Bitcoin system, everyone wins. It's an aligned incentive structure system. That is foreign to so many people. I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with higher net worth individuals, and they always ask me the same question: what's the catch? And I say, there is no catch. You just stay humble, stack sats. And they're looking at me, they're like, wait a second. So you're trying to tell me that if I just buy Bitcoin, I put this in self-custody, and perhaps maybe have some exposure to MicroStrategy, I'm going to outperform my regular wealth manager's advice? And I'm like, yeah. And it's very difficult for them to believe me on that. But eventually, number go up does what number go up does best. And it's like, holy shit, this kid's been telling me to buy Bitcoin since $1,000. maybe I should have listened by now, you know? So anyways, the world's waking up to this. I'm so optimistic. Incredible job by Saylor joining Dave Portnoy on his show. Again, Dave Portnoy has a massive audience. This is Barstool Sports. This is mainstream kind of normie land. Bitcoin is penetrating into the mainstream consciousness as Simply Bitcoin has predicted. And I'm telling you, Opti, we were talking before the show. You said, Nico, you know, I don't think those CEOs are there yet. I'm telling you, bro, I think that this is all on an accelerated timeline. Why am I saying that? Because I said that this Bitcoin wasn't going to be a mainstream political issue until 2028. What happened? Happened a lot faster. I said, you know, this institutional adoption isn't going to happen until later, like 2026, 2027. It happened a lot faster. Again, I think that this thing, it's the, you know, it's slowly and then all at once phase. I think the all at once phase is beginning to happen. The dam is beginning to break. So Opti, what's your take on all this, brother?
Yeah, well, I think you are correct. And that was kind of our contention this morning. Nico, you're like, every CEO has to have Bitcoin right now. And I'm like, I don't know if we're necessarily there yet. And then we agreed, like, we're close. And I think that's kind of the point. We are close to that point, that tipping point of all the dominoes kind of falling. And I think these numbers, or rather these CEOs, are all going to fall very quickly. Like they have to add Bitcoin to their portfolio. They need to be buying some Bitcoin, even if it's a small amount of their total net worth. It's eventually, or rather soon, going to get into Bitcoin. Now, with that being said, I kind of think it's hilarious, and I love to see Saylor on Davey Day Trading Global. I personally, I think Dave Portnoy is hilarious. I respect him as a entrepreneur and a CEO of Barstool Sports. We look over at what Barstool Sports is doing, and they're doing an incredible job of reaching out to the masses and kind of making sports a little more entertaining than the stale kind of sports broadcasting that we've seen in the past. And, watching Dave Portnoy's journey, on the one hand, you kind of feel bad for him because, like, if he just followed the predictable playbook of just stacking sats no matter the price, he would be up, I think, millions by now. But he's overcomplicating it too much, and he keeps looking at the price. And I think it's one of those moments where when you look at what Dave Portnoy is doing, if you're a new entrant into the Bitcoin space, like, you just do the opposite and you just stack Bitcoin, continue to stack Bitcoin. But I think it's a good kind of I don't know if thought experiment's the right word, but it's a good kind of learning lesson with Dave Portnoy. And I love seeing Saylor come on here and basically say exactly what, like, Wine and all of our friends have been saying forever. It's like, we buy tops as historical timestamps. We're going to continue to buy Bitcoin. We'll buy the top forever because it's going up forever. Well, obviously, at a certain point, it'll probably level off, but we're still in, like, the adoption curve, S-curve adoption of Bitcoin, kind of taking off the gradually then suddenly moment. And so I think it's really hard for a lot of people, especially when you kind of understand what Dave Portnoy is about, or rather what the Barstool audience is about. They are all kind of gamblers. So I think some of their biggest sponsors are gambling sites. So, I understand their psychology where they just kind of want to, make some quick day trading and make some profits here and there. And it kind of flips the script. Like, I was having this conversation with Big Sean the other day. It's like, we are up against a culture right now that wants to make quick gains. And it's not that sexy to tell people to just, like, save in Bitcoin for the long term and trust us, bro, like, you're going to win. But when you really understand that there is a predictable playbook here, like, if you just follow the steps, you will succeed. It might not happen overnight, but it happens over, a 4-year time period, or, 8-year, however long you want to kind of think about it. But it's a very simple playbook, but it is hard to follow through. Like, I forget who said it. I think it was American Hodl, where he said something on the lines of, like, hodling sounds easy, but it's not easy when you go through, the actual process. Like, it's not easy writing down, 70, 80% drawdowns, going sideways and chopping for 2 years. Like, you do start to get impatient. I think all Bitcoiners have felt that at a certain point, until you understand, just like the classic meme of, like, what is there to sell your Bitcoin for? Like, you're going to go back to dollars? Like, no, that's idiotic at this point. And so getting people to kind of understand that all you really have to do is just save in Bitcoin. Like, yeah, if you want to do day trading stuff, like, you can put aside some fiat to do that, and like understand that you're in the casino essentially, and if you need that dopamine rush of like trading and getting your wins and etc., like by all means do that. But you should have a hodl stash, something that you are just continuing to accumulate, add it for the long term, and look out in 10 years and be like, okay, this is my stack that's going to protect me. It's going to maintain its purchasing power over time. And so I think watching Dave Portnoy kind of learn this, and of course have Saylor be on Dave Portnoy's platform and kind of get this message out to a lot of like degenerate gamblers over there at Barstool Sports, I think is kind of a testament to the idea we've been talking about here on Simply Bitcoin for a while, that Bitcoin is entering the mainstream consciousness, and now people have to take Bitcoin seriously. And further, they have to take the HODL strategy even more serious, because again, it's not sexy to tell people to save in Bitcoin. Like that is kind of one of the things that we are up against in a culture right now that is very, ADD, high dopamine. They need the wins to feel like they're flexing on their friends, and the status symbols of like, I got 100x gains in, 1 week or whatever. But if you follow the playbook of just stacking sats, accumulating, taking it into personal cold storage, then it is literally a no-brainer. It is an unbeatable strategy. And I think more people are starting to pick up on this. Again, we're up against a culture that is, very high time preference, very superficial. And this is why it's very important to get Saylor to go on to, or rather out of, the Bitcoin echo chamber. And Nico and I have been covering this on the show for a long time. And so it's kind of interesting, Nico, because we've done a lot of Dave Portnoy topics on our YouTube, and either people don't really know who Dave Portnoy is, or they just don't care because he's kind of like a gambler and they're like, yeah, whatever, Dave Portnoy doesn't matter. But this is how we reach out and get the Bitcoin signal to more and more people and have them understand that, hey, it's the money that is broken. You need to save in something that doesn't get devalued, that doesn't get debased, and you can't save in dollars. And so yeah, if you want to stay on the hamster wheel of trying to trade your way to a lot of wealth, like you can try to do that, but as Saylor was saying, like the house always wins, and the opposite happens in Bitcoin, where the Bitcoiner is the one that always wins. As long as you understand what's going on with Bitcoin, you're going to win. And, or rather, as long as you understand the simple meme of, hey, 21 million Bitcoin, it's going to go up forever. Make sure your Bitcoin is in cold storage. Make sure you control that Bitcoin. Don't leave it on an exchange. Like, you're going to succeed. And again, it's just not a sexy narrative to tell people to save money, but it's starting to catch on. And as more CEOs and high net worth individuals start to take the leap into Bitcoin, I think more people are going to kind of look at Bitcoin and be like, oh, wait, this is a viable way for me to save wealth, and everyone's going to follow. So it is a gradually then suddenly moment. We're still I think 2025 is probably going to be like a big year to see a lot of people capitulate on Bitcoin. We've kind of been seeing the foundations being built in 2024, and now 2025 might be the year that like Bitcoin gets catapulted into the mainstream.
Amen to that. I completely agree. Guys, you're listening to Simply Bitcoin. If you guys are enjoying the show so far, make sure to smash that like button. Help us break 300 likes. We hit 655 live viewers just on YouTube alone, and 2,558 live viewers across all platforms. So if you guys are enjoying the show so far, it really, really helps Simply Bitcoin. It really helps Bitcoin too. Get that message out there. Get that orange signal out there. Remember, at the end of the day, Simply Bitcoin, tomorrow's Bitcoin news today, baby. All right, everybody, let's get to the news. We have tons to cover. Let's check it out. We will be right back. I want to give a very special shout out to our sponsor, Compass Mining. They make Bitcoin mining accessible to everyone, from beginners to experienced investors. Their turnkey miners gets you online and hashing within 48 hours, making it easier than ever to start your mining journey. Plus, with their active marketplace, you can resell your miner at any time, adding flexibility and value to your investment. Visit their website to access a wealth of resources, learning everything you need to know about Bitcoin mining. Take your first step into the world of Bitcoin mining with confidence. Discover more at compassmining.io. Again, compassmining.io. and see how Compass Mining can power your success. I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Foundation. It's self-custody done right. They built a premium grade hardware wallet called Passport right here in the US, and it integrates seamlessly with their free app called Envoy. Passport is fully open source and verifiable. It's the most intuitive Bitcoin wallet designed with a UX reminiscent of a classic feature phone, so you'll know how to navigate it and use it the moment you pick it up. It's also air-gapped, meaning Bitcoin stays offline, never touching an internet connection. It's Bitcoin only, open source verifiable, air-gap security model, gorgeous design craft, premium grade materials. Get your Bitcoin off exchanges and into your own hands in just a few minutes with Passport at foundation.xyz/simply. Get peace of mind for your peace of. All right, everybody, we are back. Opti is going to show you guys the Passport by Foundation devices. Guys, this is the perfect gift to give to somebody that is intimidated by self-custody. The Passport makes it convenient while not sacrificing security. Use promo code SIMPLY to get a discount. Passport by Foundation devices, Bitcoin only, open source, hardware wallet. All right, everybody, let's get to today's news. We have tons to cover. A couple of clips. First of all, check out this clip from CNBC, and I'm telling you, this echoes what I was telling you in the beginning of what I was telling you in the last section, the last block. Look, you have the biggest banks, you have the biggest companies, you have some of the biggest countries, you have the president of the most powerful economic military power in world history. You have the president basically literally calling out Bitcoin by name. And it's only up 132% this year, which is like crazy in regular investing terms, but in Bitcoin terms, like, no, that's nothing, right? So anyways, I'm going to play you guys this clip and then we'll talk about it. Let's check it out.
The flow show from Bank of America, you have the largest 4-week inflow ever into crypto assets. We can hit that because you keep buying Bitcoin, and you did it again, as we would show Bitcoin again, because we got to 100K, we kissed it, and we came back a little bit, and we're hovering right below.
Right, which is not unusual. So I'm in my office in Chicago, and I see the news of who Trump appointed for the SEC.
Yeah, crypto-friendly person.
Exactly. So it was trading below, I think it was at 97,000 at the time, immediately bought some more and said this is going to be the catalyst to get through 100. It was going to get through 100 anyway. Now, yesterday we saw a 5% correction. It's not unusual when you go through these psychological points that are resistance to fall back behind it. But I now think 100 is going to be support, and that we will keep going once the administration's actually in place.
Well, some of the commentary yesterday was, if I recall it correctly, overdone but not over. Right.
Yeah,
that might have been Wolf research that said overdone but not over. Then you had other calls of saying, well, yeah, they agree with Weiss. 100,000, okay, ante up, give me 250.
So moving on to the next clip, right? So you have that happening in the United States, right? Again, guys, if you're new, like to the scene, your class of one of the latest classes in the 2020s, me and Opti were around in the days where the legacy media, if they brought Bitcoin up, it was to criticize it, right? It was the non-slot, relentless attack by the legacy media, which, in my opinion, is like won't be around in 10 years. I agree with Elon Musk takes. We are the media now with social media. But yeah, I mean, it's just crazy. So let's check out this clip from our friends over at Bitcoin Magazine. They're throwing, again, the Bitcoin MENA conference coming out of Abu Dhabi. And here is the Prince Philip of Serbia, and he says some interesting things about nation-state mining.
Bitcoin adoption comes in many forms, from just mining to store of value to medium exchange. I think the one people are really interested in would be the next El Salvador. El Salvador was an outlier. I think we may get a surprise this coming year, hopefully, but we're going to see mining adoption is ever increasing. That is at a nation state level, that's happening all the time. It's happening in secret, it's happening in open. And the next one that's people talking about right now is strategic reserves, so SOV, store of value. that is already happening behind closed doors, or it will start to happen in the open. When it starts to happen in the open, then that's when, you know, the whole game theoretic ripple effects of it will start to take off. But really, the one I'm more interested in is medium exchange. Really, that's what the white paper said. You know, it's a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. That's what we're here for. But yeah, we've got to understand that it works more as a store of value today than it does as a medium exchange. Thanks to layer 2 solutions like Liquid and Lightning, that we're able to transact cheaper fees when the high fee environments, or just much faster transactions, and stick to the core thesis of what is Bitcoin. Over time, we'll have better technology that will allow us to transact faster, but always remain true to what is Bitcoin. And Bitcoin main chain is that it's security. It's 15, 16 years of unadulterated truth.
Right.
It is a pillar of truth, that the longest piece of truth we've ever had in humanity, and it's only growing. And that's why the world is waking up to it, and that's why the world is starting to unfold, and the cracks and all the bullshit happening in the planet will all start to unravel thanks to Bitcoin.
I mean,
Beautifully put. So many things to kind of uncover there. I'm gonna get to the truth part in a second, because I love his take on that. But the first part, where you have essentially secret kind of nation state, mining. This is something that we discovered with the Kingdom of Bhutan, right? They weren't going to announce that they were mining Bitcoin. It was actually discovered because of the Celsius lawsuit, and then it slipped through the cracks that that the Kingdom of Bhutan has been mining Bitcoin, and they actually increased their mining capability using the publicly traded company BitDeer. They increased their mining capability, even though the halving was like 1 or 2 months away, by a factor of 5. They 5x'd it, and now they have 1/3 of their GDP in Bitcoin. So could you imagine all these other countries that are mining Bitcoin in secret, especially if they're countries that have a tremendous amount of energy production potential, but perhaps their populations are very small, or those energy sources are isolated, they're stranded. If they're stranded, there would be no economical value of those. And there would be, but it comes down to economics. Right? Are you really going to extract that energy, or if it's far away from, a factory or far away from a population center? Kind of doesn't make sense. The thing with Bitcoin miners is that they can go towards the energy pockets, right? So it changes the game. That was the case with the Kingdom of Bhutan. They had a tremendous amount of extra hydroelectric power, and they were selling it. But then they realized, wait a second, we should just mine Bitcoin instead. We'll make a lot more money. And I have a suspicion that our friends over at Bitcoin Magazine decided to throw this conference in the Middle East. The Middle East, some countries in the Middle East are known for what? Massive amounts of energy production, with oil, natural gas, all of that stuff. So, I mean, we could be hearing something, right? Now, in regards to the truth component, I really want to talk about this. The truth component is so important. Bitcoin is truth. Why? Because Bitcoin is anchored to reality via proof of work. And the problem with fiat, and that the reason that I would say fiat is a lie, is because it is not anchored to reality. In fact, it's completely disconnected from reality. And I would say that if you are using, and this is why Opti was saying earlier on the show, that hodling is hard and difficult. And it's hard and difficult for a multitude of reasons. But the one that you don't realize is that hodling is a spiritual journey. You're spiritually changing. It's an emotional journey. It's a physical journey. It's a journey that humbles you, and you learn things about yourself. But the spiritual component is something that is not being talked about enough. And the reason that I fundamentally believe that's the case is because money plays a very important role in the human experience and the human condition. It affects every facet of life, whether that's politics, economics, your business, your income, what you choose to buy, how things are manufactured, the quality of how things are manufactured. War. Money plays an integral role in the human condition and in human society. And what happens if that money is fundamentally disconnected from the truth? It's corrupted. You want to know why society is going down this moral decay? Why you see this around you? It's because of corrupted money. It's because the money is based on a lie. What happens when the money is based on truth? What happens when the money is sound? What happens when the money is uncorruptible? You have countries like El Salvador. What if you've been holding Bitcoin for a couple of years? I promise you, you feel more optimism about the future. You're thinking long term. You're thinking about your personal health. You're happier. You're optimistic. You see a path towards the future. If you're living on a fiat standard, there is no path towards the future, especially if you're younger. It's nihilistic. It's depressing. It's dark. And because you have, even if it's in the back of your mind, even if you're not 100% conscious of it, you act upon those feelings. You act upon that nihilism, that darkness. Bitcoin fixes that because it gives you hope. It gives you back your dignity, your humanity that has been taken away from you via fiat and currency debasement, also known as theft. Let's be blunt. Inflation is theft. Inflation is a social contract on society on which society has not agreed upon. Income tax, you can make an argument for it. You can say, Nico, I dislike income tax. It sucks. And I'll say, you know what? It's law. We agreed as a society for income tax, whether you like it or not, whether it was a psyop, it is law. It is law. Income tax is law. We have not agreed as a society about the tax that is inflation. That was thrown onto us without our approval. We did not agree to that. And this is what Bitcoin is about. This is what the peaceful Bitcoin revolution is about. It's about taking back our sovereignty. It's about taking back our dignity. It's about turning the world back to the truth. It's about making the truth important again. And the reason that we live in a world full of lies is because the money is an effing lie. Let's make the money truth again. Anyways, Opti, what's your take on that? Dude, Prince Philip, he nailed it. He nailed it when he was talking. I'm like, damn, he's gone down the Bitcoin rabbit hole for sure. But this is something that like people perhaps are not fully aware or conscious of, and you were touching upon it earlier on the show when you were talking about, and I know why you were talking about that because it was American Hodl's post on Nostr, which was so based. The journey of hodling, the experience of hodling, which on paper it's easy. What do you mean, Nico? I just have to buy Bitcoin and put in self-custody. What are you talking about spirituality and growing and what are you smoking? I promise you, you will grow as a human being by hodling Bitcoin because it is not easy. Those drawdowns, the things that you go through are not easy. And again, what happens when you change your operating system from a fiat operating system to a Bitcoin operating system? Opti.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. Like, on paper, it sounds really easy. It's not that difficult. You just like buy Bitcoin, hodl Bitcoin, take in the cold storage, and repeat the process. That's literally all you have to do. Quote, all you have to do. But while you become a Bitcoiner, and I argue it is kind of a journey to becoming Bitcoin. Maybe we're born as Bitcoiners, and then you kind of build the character of being a Bitcoiner. I don't know. We could argue that later. But as you kind of go on your hodl journey, and that's kind of cringe, I'm not going to lie a little bit, but it does kind of either expose yourself to yourself, or it kind of builds new behaviors. And as we've kind of experienced in ourselves, it's like, you come into Bitcoin and you realize you have to unlearn a lot of things from the world that you believe was real. And then you realize, oh, wait, either, there's a lot of lies or there's a lot of misinformation out there. And part of that is like building your Bitcoin conviction. And you do start to realize that, yeah, like Bitcoin is a closer approximation of reality, and it's a better money. And this is why, I believe if you align yourself with reality, you are better aligned to succeed. And this is why I think we're seeing a lot of problems with people that aren't necessarily Bitcoiners or have been psyoped by the media, is because their whole worldview, I would argue, is a lie or built on lies. And now they're realizing that, oh my God, I always blank on the Mark Twain quote from The Big Short. It's not what you believe. I'm blanking on it. It's like what you believe that you think is true that isn't really so. Like that's where we are right now. A lot of people are kind of lost in this fantasy world right now where they think they know the truth. It's because, the media has been telling them some things over a long portion of time, and they think that they are authority figures and they think that's how the world really works. But then a whole new system is built and a whole new paradigm and a whole new money is built. And you realize that everything that I've learned it's kind of wrong. And this is the part of being a Bitcoiner. Like you do shed a lot of your, you were calling it operating system, but a lot of the thoughts and pretenses and givens that you thought of the world, and those start to shed away, and you start to realize, oh wait, there's a totally different worldview here. And this is what we're up against. This is why Nico and I always kind of talk about the culture and society at large, because a lot of people, at least the mainstream culture, is kind of built on lies. A lot of it is lies, and a lot of it is narratives that have no basis in reality. And now as a Bitcoiner, once you understand that, hey, maybe it's the money, maybe it's fake money that's the problem. As the meme goes, fix the money, fix the world. You start to realize that, oh, if you better align yourself with a better money, a sound money, then your life does improve. And part of that journey is kind of eliminating all the excess and the fat and the misrepresentations and the distortions of reality. And you start to hodl that Bitcoin and you realize, oh, wait, like before I was a Bitcoiner, I was obviously inclined to being a Bitcoiner because I've told everyone this many times on the show, I'm kind of an anti-authoritarian here. Like I hate when people tell me what to do. And so maybe I was more inclined to become a Bitcoiner. But through that process, I realized a lot of the things that I kind of viewed to be truth were wrong. And I had to, do the work and kind of recalibrate my mental processing. And now it's just like, it's so obvious to you, but there is kind of a mental filter when you come into Bitcoin that you do have to unlearn. And this is what we're doing right now. And I don't necessarily think that that's going to have to happen to everyone moving forward. Eventually, I think people are just going to kind of adopt Bitcoin as a better money and their lives will improve. But there is a process for a lot of us in Bitcoin that have been here for a lot of years. And as Bitcoin has been bootstrapping itself, like Nico was kind of mentioning it, I know a lot of people in the chat are still kind of getting badgered and called idiots by their friends and family. Like I literally got a Instagram reel this morning by one of my friends. It was like some Tom Green reel right now. He's on a date and he's kind of explained crypto coins. And he's like, look, I got the charts. It's so easy. You sell when it's high and you buy when it's low. And I got some charts to back up. So I'm still personally getting trolled by friends, and I've been telling them for years to buy Bitcoin, and they still kind of think of it as like a fad. And so there is a spiritual journey throughout becoming a Bitcoiner. There is a behavioral change that happens throughout becoming a Bitcoiner. And I think the world is starting to realize that. And I think they're going to kind of be forced to change their behavior. And I think this is going to be a good thing for the future. So I couldn't agree more on the spiritual aspect of Bitcoin. Hence why the pseudonym I have here is Optimus Field, because throughout this, it's kind of been a moniker to live up to. Like, there is more optimistic, there is a better worldview, there is fields that are, green fields, blue skies, all the memes you want. And it really starts with adopting Bitcoin. Now, with all that being said, I do kind of want to mention the fact that, Prince Philip just is a full Chad out here. He's kind of been in the space for a little bit. You can see that he's been starting to make a little more of noise.
He's down. He's down.
Yeah, he's so down the rabbit hole.
He's talking about truth and Bitcoin.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
He's a couple years in for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And I just love to see it. Like, it's seeing people. You could argue. I won't go into it, but like seeing people of that statue and of, that royal lineage come out and being like, yes, pro Bitcoin, it really just goes to show the echo chambers are breaking out there, and Bitcoin is starting to infiltrate every corner of the world, and every person from every class system and every class level is starting to wake up to Bitcoin. And I think this is kind of part of that, getting the world to a better future. And I know, Nico, you say it all the time on the show. We probably mention this every other day here on the show, but fiat money, paper money is a world of pessimism and nihilism and war. And when you get on a Bitcoin standard or a personal Bitcoin standard, it does give you hope. Like, that's why, hope.com was chosen by Michael Saylor, because even he has felt hope because of Bitcoin. That very, very, I would argue, powerful clip of him. He's like, look, I was a billionaire and I still felt hopeless and that there was nothing I can do to succeed. And then I found Bitcoin, and now he's on the road to becoming the richest man in the world. Like, it's absolutely crazy. And so if you start to add Bitcoin to your personal portfolio, to your personal savings, it may be like a leap to new people on the show, but it does make you a better person. And, that's just like a full stop, period, end of story there. You have to become someone worthy of ushering in these sats. And I think all of us kind of go through that mental process of like, am I worth the sats that I, am holding and accumulating? And I think we all kind of have that journey within ourselves to become better.
100%. I think, Opti, you put it beautifully. Anyways, guys, stay tuned because we are going to get to the culture. Opti, what are we going to talk about during the culture segment to tease the audience a little bit?
Yeah. So this whole show, I'm kind of doing the flip side of the coin here. The whole show has been kind of, bullish news coming out of the mainstream culture. Now in the culture for today, I'm doing the flip side. There's still a lot of pushback, and I think it's very important for us to kind of talk about it. So yeah, mainstream culture isn't fully on board with Bitcoin, but this is just, you love to see it. You love to see the cope. So I'm going to cover a couple different examples of that.
Absolutely. All right, guys, we'll be right back. We're going to hit the daily culture. Smash the like button. You're listening to Simply Bitcoin Live. I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, HIVE Digital Technologies. As the first ever public miner, HIVE's been battle tested through every possible market. And as the first with an AI strategy, HIVE continues to redefine the future of sustainable energy. Also, gotta casually drop this in here, HIVE consistently tops the industry in Bitcoin mined per exahash. They're lean and mean, they're green and clean, and they're changing the game. Learn more by following them at HIVE Digital Tech or check out their website, hivedigitaltech.com. All right, everybody, I do want to give a shout out to one of the best Bitcoin conferences of the year that's coming up in 2025 in Dallas, Texas. It's going to be April 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th. What conference am I talking about? I'm talking about the conference where me and Opti first met each other in person, BitBlockBoom. BitBlockBoom. It's going to be one of the best Bitcoin conferences of the year. You definitely don't want to miss it. It's not too big where you get lost in the sauce. It's not too small. It's just the right size so that you can network with some of your favorite Bitcoiners. Whether that's Opti, whether that is Jimmy Song, whether that's Marty Bent, whether that's Dante, whether that's Rustin, they're all going to be there, and you have the opportunity to go up to them, spark up a conversation with them, and just network. Also, if you're trying to get a job in the industry, I highly recommend this conference as well. It's a perfect opportunity for you to network with some of your favorite Bitcoin companies and just pull out some feelers and meet the CEOs of those said Bitcoin companies, right? I remember when I got a job in the industry, I didn't get a job through like my resume or my education. It's literally because I started networking around these conferences, and I grew a platform on social media. That's one of the most effective ways, right? So guys, you definitely don't want to miss BitBlockBoom 2025. It's going to be the beginning of April. And if you use promo code BBB21, again, BBB21, you get $100 off of your tickets. Get your tickets now because the price goes up in the next 22 days or so. Their prices go up. So you want to get your tickets now. Don't wait for later because that's how you're going to pay the most for your ticket. So again, BBB21 for $100 off. Anyways, Opti, what are we talking about today during the culture?
Okay, well, as I was saying, it's all not peaches and roses in Normie land in regards to Bitcoin taking over the mainstream. There has been a lot of pushback on the idea of a Bitcoin strategic stockpile or strategic reserve. And so I have a bunch of different examples, but there is a clip coming out of MSNBC that I really want to play in full. It is a little long. So anyways, before we go, just a little bit of pushback. And I am kind of doing this in chronological order rather than the days that they came out. So first, breaking, former U.S. Treasury Secretary Larry Summers says a national Bitcoin reserve idea is crazy. You can play this. It's you've heard it before. Now, going forward, we have Lloyd Blankenfield, who is former CEO and chairman of Goldman Sachs. He's only tweeted twice this whole year, and he tweeted talking bad about Bitcoin. So reading the tweet, Trump correctly spoke to the importance of defending the dollar's exclusivity as the world's reserve currency, helps U.S. trade, financing our deficit, driving U.S. policy choices on our enemies and frenemies. So why is the new admin so bent on promoting BTC, but he spelt it BITC. And then you see David Bailey right here. He's like, you've been wrong about Bitcoin for 15 years, so you clearly have no clue. Okay, moving forward, this is the clip I want to play for you guys. This is Chris Hayes on MSNBC. It is like a 5-minute clip, so I'm going to play part of it. We'll see if we can get through the whole thing. But I think this kind of sums up the whole conversation that you're hearing coming out from normie, pundits out there coping with what is going on here. They are kind of trying to make this a partisan issue, which obviously Nico loves to talk about here. And I think this is just like a good summary of just what we're seeing. There is a new FUD line coming out right now, and it is targeted towards the Bitcoin strategic stockpile. Even though we've been covering throughout the last couple of weeks that is starting to catch fire, that signal starting to spread, and more countries are looking towards Bitcoin as a viable thing to add to their nation state treasury. With that being said, let's watch this clip.
So for very understandable reasons, Democrats and Democratic regulators have worked hard to keep crypto, which has been supremely volatile, blocked off from the rest of financial systems, so that if it crashes, it doesn't bring the entire U.S. economy down with it, requiring a bailout. Some rich people holding a lot of crypto disagree with that strategy. They want a bailout, implicit or explicit, if the house of cards comes crashing down. To that end, after Republicans took back the Senate with the help of money from the crypto industry, they now have a plan to return the favor. And I want you to listen to this part because no one's really talking about this, but the elements of the plot are just there in plain sight. Senate Republicans are working on a bill that would transfer billions and billions of dollars of money from the U.S. government, from taxpayers, and hand it over to a handful of big crypto holders.
Sounds like a great idea.
For President Donald Trump. Here it is. This Bitcoin Reserve Bill in the Senate of the United States to establish a Bitcoin Strategic Reserve, a network of secure storage vaults, purchase program, and other programs to ensure the transparent management of Bitcoin holdings of the federal government.
Yes, the Bitcoin Act from Republican Senator Cynthia Lummis of Wyoming. It would establish a Federal Reserve of Bitcoin. It's truly one of the most audacious schemes I've ever seen in Congress. Here's why. Rich folks who own a lot of crypto have a problem, right? Cryptocurrency, Bitcoin in particular, is a very valuable asset. Single Bitcoin worth over 100 grand. Some very, very wealthy people own hundreds of millions or even billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin. David Sachs, for instance, has a lot of crypto. That said, it's not a liquid asset like cash that you can easily spend or invest or use for practical purposes. It has no practical use really outside of a few gimmicks, and it's very useful for criminal cartels. So if you're an investor, you're sitting on this speculative asset. You can't actually do anything with it, but it's worth a lot of money. What's more, if you try to sell it all off, right, to get rid of it, the hordes of Bitcoin on the exchanges, that's going to flood the market and tank the price. So what's the solution? They're going to sell it to the U.S. government.
Over 5 years, the United States will assemble 1 million Bitcoin, 5% of the world's supply, and it will be held for a minimum of 20 years and can be used for one purpose: reduce our debt.
Reduce our debt? You can't pay the debt down in Bitcoin. Are you tracking this? Are you tracking what's being planned and announced in person here, right? The U.S. government handing billions of dollars into the pockets of rich crypto holders? The plan is that the Bitcoin Act would have the government sell off some of its gold reserves, you know, the stuff from Fort Knox, and use the money to buy 1 billion Bitcoin. At current market value, that would cost $100 billion. Now, the actual price would likely be much higher because that market value would almost certainly rise as a result when a new buyer enters the market and boosts the price of the asset the buyer is now legally obligated to buy.
Pause this shit right now. Okay. Oh my God. Okay, a couple things. First of all, he says that the U.S. government would be handing billions of dollars to rich crypto holders. No, the U.S. government would be buying the Bitcoin themselves. And Bitcoin is obviously a superior asset to gold, as has been reflected over the last 10 years. It would be a net positive for the country. What I don't like, too, is the class warfare. It really, really pisses me off because essentially the way that he's trying to frame it is, you know, this is only going to benefit the rich at the expense of the poor. No, Bitcoin is not a zero-sum game. Everyone could win. If you buy $100 worth of Bitcoin a month and that's what you can afford, it's going to make your life better over time because you're saving your purchasing power from the ravages of inflation. You're actually able to save. So this whole class warfare type of bullshit is divisive. And again, he's not accurately portraying what Cynthia Lummis is proposing, because Cynthia Lummis is just proposing that we allocate some of the gold reserves into Bitcoin, of which the U.S. government would own, because the way that he was phrasing it is we would be giving this $100 billion to rich Bitcoin owners. Like, listen, the Bitcoin owner that owns $1,000 worth of Bitcoin, on a percentage term, they're gonna benefit just as much as the Bitcoin owner that has 100 Bitcoin. Percentage-wise, they're gonna benefit equally if the U.S. government goes in and buys Bitcoin. And it would belong to the U.S. government. It wouldn't belong, they're not just handing this money to the rich crypto owners. So this is divisive class warfare, which is, you know, the rich, the oppressors, and the poor, the oppressed. That's bullshit. Bitcoin is the most inclusive, equitable money the world has ever seen. Because the world that Chris Hayes is advocating for is a world where, if depending on a country that you happen to be born in, you are entitled or you're not entitled to open a bank account. That sounds exclusive. That sounds really exclusive. And you know what class of people inflation affects the most? the lower and middle classes, because they don't have the means to save in assets. They get ravaged every time the government prints money. And Bitcoin is a way for them to protect themselves from the ravages of inflation. Like, we just went through an election the last 4 years where clearly people are prioritizing the prices of their grocery bills. They're prioritizing what's going on with inflation. So, yeah, man, if they want to continue heading down this path of class warfare and demonizing Bitcoin and Bitcoin holders, I think that's a losing battle for them, as this last election showed. I think Bitcoin is bipartisan. It's not a left or right thing. Bitcoin is for everybody. But I will tell you this, Bitcoin is not for collectivists. Specifically, if you are, believing in this collectivist ideology where you believe that the government is all powerful and should have the right to redistribute wealth on a massive scale, like, Bitcoin is going to make that a little bit more difficult. I'm not going to lie. And I truly believe that the world is going to be a much better place for it, because these are the same people that are advocating for a system that completely betrayed my generation and the Zoomer generation. I remember 2008 were under a progressive president. I remember 2008 where the US government, on behalf of the American people, aka Main Street, bailed out Wall Street. They were given a bailout at the expense of all of us. If you want to know why you can't afford a home as a Gen Z or as a millennial, it's because of that. It's because of that. But you know what? If you've been saving and earning in Bitcoin, it's not a question of can you afford a home? It's a question of when will you be able to afford a home? And if you're deep down the rabbit hole, you'll come to a realization of, no, I'm just going to rent, because if I buy a home, I'm probably going to end up with less Bitcoin. And one last thing I'll say before I pass it on to Opti, right? He mentioned 100 billion. We've sent 300 billion to Ukraine. Where's that money, bro? Have I benefited from that? That's thousands of miles away. There's homeless people all over the streets in some cities. There's crime. There's people that can't afford housing. And you're sending $300 billion to a foreign country to fund a war with a nuclear armed country? And you're literally lecturing me about putting $100 billion into Bitcoin, which clearly has shown that over the last 10 years, it is a superior asset to gold. Nah, you're relying on misrepresenting truths, misrepresenting the data for a political agenda. And you want to know why Elon Musk is telling you you are the media now? It's because of people like Chris Hayes. People are sick and tired of getting lied to. This is why MSNBC's ratings continue to plummet, because he's lying to your face. And at certain point, like, maybe it's my culture, maybe it's like a Hispanic thing. If you're going to continue to lie to my face, I find that very disrespectful. And it's going to come to a point where I'm going to tune out and I'm going to watch something else. And instead of changing course and like looking within yourself and saying, you know what, like, we're probably losing ratings because like we're not really reporting the news, this is kind of like propaganda, they double down and they call Elon Musk an extremist. Like, no, dude, like, that world is over. You no longer have a monopoly on information. You no longer have a monopoly on the narrative. You're going to have to deal with independent thinking and people doing their own research and thinking critically. And in that type of world, you can't get away with bullshit, to be frank. And if it's simply Bitcoin that has to like rebuke the bullshit, so be it, Opti. We will rebuke the bullshit because that is so evil. This class warfare. No, listen. If you can only afford $20 of Bitcoin a month, and that's all you can afford. Listen, when I got into Bitcoin in 2016, this is for Chris Hayes. When I got into Bitcoin in 2016, I was living on my friend's couch, working a minimum wage job, and I stuck to it. Bitcoin gave me a career. Bitcoin gave me a business. Bitcoin got me to where I am today. 8 years of me working hard and believing. Minimum wage job, living on my friend's couch. So what is this that Bitcoin is for the rich? No. Everyone's going to benefit. And I'm going to be buying Bitcoin when it's at 1 million, when it's at 5 million, when it's at 100,000. Why? Why would I want to use dollars? Why would I want to use a money that steals from me? Why would I want to use a money that is constantly taking my purchasing power and redistributing it back to the government? The government completely is unaccountable. The Pentagon failed what? Their 8th audit in a row. If you did that to the IRS, you'd be put in jail. Like, no, dude. This is what this election was all about. People were sick and tired of the BS. They rebuked the legacy media. Trump won in a landslide. If you were just listening to legacy media, you would have thought that a totalitarian was elected. So we're tired of it. And it all started in 2008, the betrayal to the country by the government to bail out the elites. The Occupy Wall Street movement. This is all Bitcoin. This is what it's all about. Bitcoin was born. Do you think Bitcoin was born in 2009 out of coincidence? No. It was a protest. In the Genesis block of Bitcoin, it says Chancellor on the brink of the second bailout for banks. Do you think that's a coincidence? This is the people's money. This is the way for the people to protest against that said system. Chris Hayes is the elite. Chris Hayes is the political class that is oppressing the people. Bitcoin is the tool of which people are going to find freedom and break free from those chains of oppression that people like Chris Hayes are trying to psyop people into falling into. That is pure evil, misinformation, misrepresentation of the facts, and class warfare trying to divide people based on the wealth that they've been able to acquire. Shame on you, Chris Hayes. You put journalists to shame. You're not a journalist. You're a propagandist. We're more journalists than you are. That's what I gotta say.
Oh man, love it. Well, I knew this was going to trigger you, Nico, so hold on. We get some hair horns here for you. But also, one thing that you did just mention about like the Genesis block, I find it very interesting. And I have some more here for you, Nico. So I have 2 more tweets here that I think we're going to put the pin on for today's show. But I think the craziest part about that clip was the fact that, like, we've said this actually on the show before, that we're going to get blamed for the government and fiat's problems. And he's basically saying like, oh, now we need the government to bail us out. And it's like, no, Bitcoin was like literally created as a response to the 2008 bailouts. But of course, facts don't mean anything to them. All right, now going on a little more, Nico, we have a little more. We have this tweet here from George Selgin, who is from the Cato Institute, which is a financial and monetary think tank. And he's kind of saying the same thing that the MSNBC co-host is saying, is that now the U.S. government is to be a marketing agency for Bitcoin. So much for limited government, as I thought this way it'd be making a case for a U.S. strategic stockpile of my next book. And I dare say that it would be just as sound as the case for a strategic Bitcoin reserve, and he's been doubling down on this. And then, of course, everyone's favorite gold bug out here, Peter Schiff, I think kind of nails it here in kind of like a reverse thinking way here, which is, I think, something that we're going to see continue. And as we like to cover here in the culture is, you know, not only highlighting Bitcoin projects and Bitcoin signal, but also kind of highlighting what the culture is thinking about Bitcoin. And I think Peter Schiff kind of hits the nail on the head again in the worst way possible. So here's the tweet. Bitcoin has become a national security threat. It's one thing when private citizens voluntarily waste their own money buying Bitcoin, but it crosses the line when they bribe government officials to squander the public's money buying it. And this is the emphasis here, and this is probably what we're going to be seeing, and we've been saying this on the show for a while. Quote, Bitcoin is now public enemy number one. And I think this is kind of the groundwork being laid, as we saw on MSNBC. You know, Nico kind of covered it, and we've been covering this on the show for a while. But of course, adding the Bitcoin spin here, shouts out the Lop on Twitter, and he goes, Bitcoin only becomes a national security threat if other nations become Bitcoin rich while our own nation stays Bitcoin poor. And this is the signal here, guys. Like, they are coping. You love to see the cope and the seethe coming from the mainstream propaganda wings. But it is interesting. And again, you know, I forget who it was in the chat, Nico, but them kind of trolling us and saying, you know, simply Bitcoin is tomorrow's Bitcoin is today. We literally said this at some point throughout the year, especially when it was getting a little hairy in the US, that Bitcoin will be blamed for the problems of the fiat system. And we're starting to see that groundwork get laid, where like, oh, you know, now Bitcoiners are lobbying the U.S. government to bail them out. You know, now Bitcoiners are lobbying.
No shit, Sherlock. You attacked our industry for 3.5 years. You attacked our industry and you lied about it. You said that you weren't doing it, but you put some of us in prison. Right? You isolate it. Now it's been discovered. We didn't get time to cover it today. It's been discovered that literally there was orders from the US government to banks to unbank crypto companies. You had the hostile SEC. You had the proposed 30% Bitcoin mining tax. What do you mean? Bitcoiners would not have gotten political if you did not force our hand. Do you think Bitcoiners are like, yeah, Republican Party, Trump? No. You created an opportunity for your political opponent to capitalize on you demonizing an entire industry of which a huge portion of your constituents own. And now you're going to continue to double down on the class warfare and the demonization of this? Like, I hope you keep doing this for 2020. When's the next election? 2026 and 2028. Good. They turned out wonderfully this time. Keep doing it. Great. It's just, you know, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. And you know what? I do have to give credit to some Democratic lawmakers, because Ro Khanna and Dennis Porter has been doing a great job on this. Not all of them feel this way about the industry, but like, you know, for them to, and MSNBC, I'm telling you, they're like the leading kind of voice for, you know, like the Democratic Party. It's a big part of that, you know, media apparatus. For them to keep doubling down that Bitcoin is bad, like, what are you guys doing? What are you guys doing? It's not a good idea politically, in my opinion. I think, look, by 2028, if you are not a pro-Bitcoin candidate, whether you're Democrat or Republican, I think you're going to be unelectable. Because I think a percentage, it's like saying back in 1999, I'm anti-internet. It's the same thing. It makes no sense whatsoever. That like, anyways. We are getting to the top of the hour. Opti is triggering me during the culture segment.
Wait! Before we can roll out, I want to acknowledge that I sometimes purposely don't show Nico the culture so we can get a real live triggering event on the show, and I think today was a good example of that. Oh man, what a good show! This is fun. This is fun.
Anyways, guys, we dropped. Guys, if you guys are enjoying the show so far, help us break 400 likes before we wrap up the show. I did a poll earlier. I asked, a lot of you guys asked, and 582 of you guys answered. On YouTube, I threw a poll. It says, will Bitcoin break 120K in 2024? 72% of you guys said yes, and 27% of you guys said no. So you guys are feeling very, very bullish for the end of the year. But anyways, guys, great show today. We'll be back tomorrow. This was Simply Bitcoin Live for December 9th, 2024. I'm your host, Nico. It's my legendary co-host who's always optimistic, Optimus Fields. We are Simply Bitcoin, and we'll be back tomorrow for a brand new episode. Peace out, everybody.
Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.